Joined on the broadcast by Aaron Cooney, going behind the mic to the Erie Otters of the Ontario Hockey League, the defending OHL champions. First title in a while for Erie in spite of a lot of success recently. Walk us through the championship season, Aaron. What were the highlights and what was the reaction in Erie to winning the OHL title?
And you said it right there. It's been a long time coming for the Otters. 15 years between championships and getting so close between 4 straight Western Conference final appearances. They got to the OHL final and lost to the eventual Memorial Cup champion in the Oshawa Generals when McDavid's final season. They actually lost to the Memorial Cup champion the last 3 years now after falling to the Windsor Spitfires. But for the Otters, I think they all kind of fell in place, and I think once Dylan Strome was returned to junior hockey for his 19-year-old year from the Arizona Coyotes. I knew what you had in Alex DeBrincat at that time as a 2-time 50-goal scorer. Taylor Radish was on the rise. You had a solid group of overage players. And then once Dylan Strome landed back in Erie, it was this all-in idea from general manager Dave Brown. And it was after that going out and getting those final pieces to make a run. You saw the addition of Warren Fogle, an overager coming over for the Kingston Frontenacs, a Carolina Hurricanes prospect, and just got off to a great start with the Charlotte Checkers and was named AHL Player of the Week. Anthony Cirelli coming over from Oshawa in a trade, and he's with the Syracuse Crunch right now. He was clutch for Oshawa in their Memorial Cup title run, including scoring the game-tying and game-winning goal in the Memorial Cup final over Kelowna back in 2015. So they added some winning talent and guys that have been there before as well, and it all just came together. Another 50-win season for the group, a CHL record with 4 in a row, and to finally get over the hump and to get through rivals the way they did, defeating and ending the back-to-back reign that could have been for the London Knights, and that going to a 7th game, a Midwest Division rival in the Owen Sound Attack in the Western Conference Final, and then in 5 games it seemed like the goal was right there. These guys had been there before, and they used that experience, and this group was playing their best hockey, and they got through Mississauga in 5 games, including here at the Erie Insurance Arena, a magical comeback in Game 5 to clinch it on home ice, down 3-1 to come back, and Taylor Radish ties it up in the final minute and a half and send it to overtime, where Anthony Cirelli comes up clutch again with the overtime winning goal to claim the OHL championship. So for Erie, it was a long time for them, and they've been waiting for this and coming so close. They endured some really bad years of hockey in kind of a tank year to get Connor McDavid, and that kind of turned everything around, and it was the culmination of the last 4 years they're building for, and it finally paid off with an OHL championship.
And that brings us to the team they have on the ice this year. You mentioned 4 straight 50-win seasons. Tell us how competitive they're expected to be, and in particular, highlight the NHL draft choices. You mentioned Radish, draft pick of Tampa Bay, Ivan Ladonia, draft pick of Minnesota, and Jordan Sambrook, Red Wings draft pick.
With any championship team, you see a lot of turnover in them. So you're seeing it over in the Quebec League with the St. John Sea Dogs as well. But Erie went from being one of the oldest teams in the league. They had 12, 19-year-olds. So this year, you had guys graduating, and you also had to figure out this deep OA situation and get down to the 3 that they're at right now. So Erie's gone from that shift, that cycle from being at the top of a junior hockey league, and now you've got to kind of work your way back up the ladder. So that's the point where Erie is right now, and it is going to be a bit of a rebuilding period with the younger talent that's come in. But there is that punch that you mentioned before, especially with those 3 guys and some veterans that have been around with Erie the last couple of seasons. Taylor Radish, the returning OHL leading point getter with 107 points last year. He's finished second to Alex DeBrincat. So there's a guy that he's shown he can fill the back of the net. He's a playmaker. He can steer a ship when called upon. Ivan Ladonia is expected last year because the Otters were so deep. Guy that started the season as an A-rated prospect just kind of slipped a bit just because of where depth was at. And he found himself going from being a scorer to now relied on as a depth and a defensive player. He certainly embraced that role. He's a key component for the Erie Otters throughout the championship run, and now with all that movement ahead, he's the number 1 center. You go from being on a third-line winger to the top-line center, and the Otters expect a lot of offense out of him, and he's off to a great start as well. And Jordan Sambrook, after a couple of years ago, a breakout performance in his rookie season to kind of come out of nowhere, make the team, and then drafted in the 6th round by the Detroit Red Wings, and he had a great season last year, 14 goals, and he finished just behind the Otters' Darren Radish, who had a phenomenal OA year to become the first ever player in OHL history to win Overager of the Year and Defenseman of the Year in one single season. But Jordan Sambrook has come back. He's taken over the blue line. Obviously, had a pretty good tournament, playing in the Traverse City tournament for the Detroit Red Wings, and of course enjoying camp and everything. But he is relied on as a veteran for the Otters and on a blue line, and he's helping to guide some of these youngsters that are seeing their way into the lineup and kind of rotating through. So it is part of that rebuilding process, and I think one of the other bigger changes, and who's been a part of this culture change and 50 wins in a row, or 4 straight 50-win seasons in a row, is Chris Knobloch, the Otters head coach, who after the season took a assistant coaching job with the Philadelphia Flyers, and he's been running their power play, and they've got off to a good start. Credit to him. But Erie was left with not just the changing of the guard on the personnel on the ice, but also behind the bench with Chris Hartsburg coming over from the Lincoln Stars. So it's been an adjustment period all around for the organization, but there are still a lot of key components from last year that have returned and are helping this team to where they're at right now.
Lastly, I wanted to ask where the Otters fit in the sports landscape there. Of course, most teams here in Canada are the top dog. We don't always assume that to be the case in the U.S., but a bit of a different market there in Erie. Where do the Otters fit in the landscape there?
I can tell you Erie is a great hockey city, and this goes back a long time to Erie. You've even had one of the inaugural ECHL teams, the Erie Panthers, the Erie Blades, and it's always had a hockey team and some sort of professional hockey here. So when the ECHL team moved out and we had an empty building, and Sherry Basson brought the junior hockey in. It was a little transition period for them to get used to, hey, this is going from pro to now kids, but they've really embraced it, and the community really enjoys junior hockey and the sport itself. But the Otters, they are the number one team here in town when you look at the other couple of minor pro teams. NBA G League team and the Erie Bayhawks, the Erie Seawolves next door. That doesn't really infringe with our season too much, but Erie's typically the talk of the town. Once you get through the fall, because high school football's huge, and that runs the show in Western Pennsylvania through Ohio. High school football's big on Fridays. We do a good job with our schedule, at least, that we were awarded more Saturday games as opposed to Fridays throughout the fall, but that picks up, and once you get into the dead of winter, it's Erie Otters hockey, and the fans are passionate, the fans love the game, and they enjoy coming out, and it's a nice little break, and when there isn't much to do, the hard winters here on Lake Erie.
Interesting to see. The fans have certainly had a good team to support there the last few years. We'll see if that holds up again this season. We thank you for telling us all about it. Best of luck to you and the Otters going forward. Aaron, thanks for this.
No problem. Thank you, and best of luck to Cape Breton.
That's Aaron Cooney, voice of the Erie Otters, joining us at the intermission. You're listening to Carstar, Cape Breton Screaming Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.